Fear Zone channel, your channel of terror. Good evening everyone, and let's go to today's story that is the young Christina, and it happened to her in the city of Katu, that is in the state of Bahia, and at that time, that was in the year 2014, the young Christina was 17 years old. My name is Christina, and today I am going to tell you something terrible that happened in my life, where in a relationship that I had with a strange man, with him I discovered hidden things that few people know exist. And starting the story, I live in a humble village in my city, and this place has many simple people, which is a rural neighborhood. But what happened once, was that I was passing by a dirt road in my neighborhood, then I saw the door of a house, a guy around 18 years old, and this guy by his appearance was not from my village. I found him very handsome and attractive, and spent looking and flirting with this guy, and he certainly was new in my village, because I had never seen him anywhere. After that I went back to my house, and I couldn't stop thinking about this young man, so I got dressed and in better clothes, and I put on some makeup to attract the boy's attention. Then I went back to the street and I passed again in front of this young man's house with whom I had flirted, but he wasn't in front of his residence. Then I took a few more walks around the streets of my village, and suddenly I saw that guy walking in the distance, and when I was near him I started flirting with him. I said hello to this guy, and the guy reciprocated, and from then on we started talking and arranged to meet at night, and when I was leaving from my house, I noticed that this guy had some very large padlocks on his bag, and some chains, but I did not mind and said goodbye to him with a kiss on the cheek. When I arrived at my residence, I did not stop thinking about this date I had set, and when the night came, I went to meet this young man who was new to the neighborhood in a certain place. I arrived at the meeting and we talked a little, and began dating, and everything went well for me that night, and also, I learned a little more of his life, that this guy was from Parana and maybe he lived in my city. Well, after a few weeks of relationship with this guy, I didn't understand that this new boyfriend of mine didn't want to introduce me to his father, and he always lied about it. He made up several stories to not introduce me to his father. But after about a month of dating, I started to notice that there were some days during the week when my new boyfriend didn't show up on some nights, and this guy said that he went out to work with his father at night. I started to suspect that he had another woman. One day I stayed hidden at a distance of about 30 meters from my boyfriend's house, and so the hours were passing and it was already more than midnight, and my boyfriend's house had all the lights off, but soon I saw a person looking through the gate of the residence, and I realized that it was my boyfriend seeing if there was anyone on the street, and he was in a strange way, looking like he wanted to hide something. Then he entered his house. I became more suspicious that he would be with some woman there inside his house, and I was already furious. I went to his residence and stood there in front looking through the gate, but I saw nothing because the lights were all off. But suddenly I heard a noise of iron chains coming from inside the house, but I was so furious that I jumped the wall of the residence and entered the backyard of my boyfriend. Then I started to hear some fast breathing noises coming from the window, and I thought that my boyfriend was with some woman in that room. So I went to that window and started to open it very slowly, to be able to see inside that room what was happening. As soon as I managed to open part of the window, I saw that the room was a bit dark, and there was only one kind of light from a lamp, but there was no bed, and as soon as I looked at the corner of the wall, I saw a huge animal that seemed to be a dark-colored dog, and it was that animal that was making that fast-breathing noise. I opened the window doors to get a better look, but this creature saw me, and it stood up and stood like a person, balancing on two legs, and I saw that it was some kind of man mixed with a dog, and the scariest thing was the glow of light that this beast had in its eyes. At this moment, I thought, for sure this beast was a werewolf, and this creature came running to the window to catch me, but the iron chains held him back. But I noticed that this beast had a kind of dog muzzle installed in its mouth that prevented it from making noise. At that moment I was so scared that I didn't want to stay in that house anymore, and realizing the risk I was running, I quickly jumped over the wall of my boyfriend's house and ran down the street. Then I arrived at my residence and stayed there in silence, just thinking about what I had just seen, and analyzed this situation, and did not tell my parents what I saw, and stayed up all night thinking what I was going to do, because I did not know what was happening and what would be the consequences of this story if I investigate, and also what kind of people were my boyfriend and his family. Well, as soon as morning came, I called the guy I was dating, to meet him in a place in my neighborhood, and when the time was right we met and started talking normally, but I didn't say anything about the werewolf. And to my surprise, my boyfriend told me that he would introduce me to his father in 2 days, where he would be at his house in the evening, and that at his residence they would make a special dinner for me. I disguised myself and told my boyfriend that I would go to that dinner, but of course, and thinking to myself that I would never go to that meeting with my boyfriend's father, because he was the suspected werewolf, and maybe the two of them would be making a dangerous trap for me, but I was scared by his invitation. After the meeting, I went back to my house and wondered what I would do about it, because my boyfriend's father could be that werewolf I saw trapped in the iron chains, and also that day when the creature was in the room, I left the window open, and this boyfriend of mine should already suspect that someone would know his family's secret. Well, the day came for the dinner scheduled for me to meet the father of my boyfriend, and my boyfriend called me during the day for me to go to this dinner, and I said I wouldn't go because I had to help an aunt who worked in the city, and that I would be very busy that night. But what happened that day was that I was locked inside the house, and I saw that my boyfriend at night passed in front of my residence just looking inside my house, to try to see me, so he gave up and ended up going away. The fact is that I spent 2 days without seeing my boyfriend. The strange thing is that this guy with whom I was dating did not call me. One day a friend came to my house to tell me that the guy I was dating moved out of the neighborhood. Of course, I went to see if this story was true and walked to his house, and when I arrived at my boyfriend's residence, his house was empty and without furniture, and surely he had moved to another place. I was curious and entered the house, and in the room where I had seen the werewolf caught in the chains, I saw that on the wall of this room there were some iron rings, where they used the chains to lure that creature. However, I didn't tell anyone what I had seen. I kept this secret with me until today, and I never saw from my boyfriend again. But what I know is that these creatures exist, and maybe the boy realized that I found out about the curse of his family, and because of this he left with his father to another place. And I'm glad they never came back to my neighborhood. And that was my story. Thanks to all of you who watched this story, and if you like it, subscribe to the Fear Zone channel, and leave your like, to receive our videos every week. Until next time.